So we're gonna talk about Jeremy going, to Gaza, Israel, all that stuff. We're gonna talk about that today, and all the stuff surrounding it. I do have one question. Did you go to the tunnels at all?
The tunnels, where?
The New York tunnels.
The New York tunnels. No, oh my God, no, I did not go to those tunnels. My friends were saying like, "Hey, let's go to Brooklyn. This looks crazy," but it didn't. It didn't seem. It seemed like I was like a little too late, and I didn't really. I wasn't interested in like getting into all of that.
No, and I don't think those were OSHA approved either. Like
No,
I don't think they need to be shored a little bit. Kind of, I felt like they were almost a trap for anyone that found them. Kind of like the Indiana Jones movie kind of thing. But yeah, I was half expected, just because you're everywhere. Whenever I find out about something, like a few days later, you're just like there with a microphone, and you're like, oh, video dropping soon. So I was like, oh, the tunnels are here. I half expected like a thumbnail, like a YouTube thumbnail of you with like a microphone in the tunnels.
the videos were great that were on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
It entertained me for more than I'd want to admit.
When that first hit, I was like, that's fake. Like, I was like, that's just too on the nose. I'm like, that's a funny gag or whatever. And then I saw like Eric Adams investigating it. I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, these are real. Oh gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, from the 5 to the 6, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, I can't do that shit. And I don't never vote, cause I'm fucking broke. And either way, I know the police ain't gon' leave me alone. On a plane by the visit Glen Rock, need crypto told me I should bring the Glock with me. So I packed up my piece and I'm sliding. Cause we might get caught up in a riot. Middle finger Trump, middle finger Biden. Fuck a left, fuck a right, is you riding? Know you love to see it, dudes rocking. Ain't no politics, baby, we just talking. From the birds to the bricks, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. Who you with?
So yes, as I said, longtime friend of the show, Jeremy Loffredo is here. Now we're gonna talk about your trip, but it's so strange. A while ago, before October 7th, you had come on, and we had just softly talk about like Israel and Palestine. We've talked about it with Max a little bit too, but not since that fateful day of October 7th. But for some people like me, for a lot of our audience, you to an extent, it's kind of sucks when the blue hair people have the same opinion as you. Like it kind of after year. And I'm saying that as like the protesters who are just saying free Palestine, whether they believe that, whether that's in vogue for them to say, whether it fits their ideology. It could be a number of things. They might genuinely believe it, but it's tough for me sometimes to not want to just oppose them on reflex, because it's the last couple of years. It's like they've every single
wrong
thing,
on everything, of course.
Yeah, every single thing. But we have to look at this morally, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was in Israel and in Palestine for, almost a month after the October 7th. And yeah, I mean, for all those listening, I know that the type of Twitter mutuals that we probably both have and that we all like, there's definitely some Israel critics and critics of Zionism out there, but how this conflict, encapsulates eugenicism and Nazism and surveillance and the lack of law and order and extrajudicial killing, you would think that, my very sober and clear-eyed mutuals who normally agree with me on everything, they speak more about this, but they don't. And I think it's, it's these blue-haired protesters. And, in the West, especially here in New York, the Palestine protests are filled, with the annoying, BLM liberal type. And I think it turns a lot of people off to it, and understandably so. The culture war is so spectacular, and we have, a memory of these people being, constantly wrong all the time. It's sort of similar to the beginnings of COVID. In the beginning of COVID, I would show up to a rally in New Jersey or New York for both work and sometimes, not for work. And everyone would be wearing Trump hats, lots of "Don't Tread on Me" flags, which honestly I don't have a problem with. But I mean, these are not the people I normally, socialize with. But they were the ones out there in the street opposing vaccine mandates and lockdowns. They were the only ones. So you sort of have to take a deep breath, whether you agree with them or not, whether with their red hats and whatever. But those people are right. They're the right side of the issue, no matter what. Like, they're right on the COVID issue, which was the most important issue of the time. And that's sort of how I feel about the Palestine protests. Largely, blue hair or not, these people are more or less correct. And that view of mine has only been, further cemented by spending a month out there in Palestine. Because if we take a step back, not long ago was the radical, hippie left that was opposing something sinister like GMOs or even gain of function research.
Yeah.
And they were correct, but now it's the hippie right. So these things are always changing. Right is right and wrong is wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you got to just remain constant, because I struggle with it all the time. And now I don't even have huge geopolitical opinions. I just know something's up with Israel. That's my take. I'm like, it doesn't feel right. Like, it just doesn't feel right. And now to be honest, I feel like everybody has their take, and their take is so like divorced because it's so far away. It's not really anything we can vote on per se. Really, I mean, they're pretty.
No, truly. It's not democratic at all.
Yeah, it's not. So it's kind of tough. I try not to get like too invested in it, but like I'm kind of like, the only people I feel like that are being like super honest about it are the people like you, are the people who have been like this for a while. Free Palestine, like Palestine has a right to defend itself, whatever. And then also, I'm not gonna lie, the other people I think that are consistent otherwise are the like people who are just basically neoconservatives.
At least they're honest, of course.
They're honest, and they're like, we need a military hub in the middle of the Middle East. Like, we just need one. Like, we need one. And if you love America, if you love the empire that you live in, which sadly a lot of us actually do like it. I mean, I hate to say it, like we do, but for them, like, they're saying like, well, that's how it stays there. And whether we agree with that or not, that is a more coherent position rather than like, actually, that guy's cringe, so I'm going to support Israel.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, that's like, there are people who, in Israel, there are people who say like, oh no, of course, like there just shouldn't be any Palestinians in Israel. They really don't deserve rights. I don't like Arabs. And as like, that's a repulsive thing to say, but at the same time, at least they're being honest about their opinions.
Straight up. Exactly. It's not this like Marvel universe, like fake war that they put in their head, like where it's like, actually, this is, all these allegories to these other stories. It's like, nah, man, this is like a huge, like, geopolitical thing. And people will say like, Israel has the right to defend itself. Okay, sure. Why do I have the right to not pay for it? I feel like that's, go ahead, go defend yourself. But like, can I not supply? I mean, look, there's
I don't have to help
people that pay more taxes than I do. I'm not saying it's funded directly by me, although California, it feels that way. But I feel like I've paid for like 2 missiles, dude. The way that I swear to God,
that's funny.
Like, yeah, no, it's
of
like,
course.
Wow, it's a lot that gets taken out. But the I don't see that. I just don't see like, why does it have to be this much money? We just went through it with Ukraine. We just went through it.
And they don't even if everybody says, I don't want to pay for it, even though that's not what's happening right now, you have, 70-something% of people saying that we should not send more, material aid, military aid to Israel. And then they vote on it. And every single politician says, no, we're going to send more. It's like, these people don't even represent us. It's not democratic at all.
I totally agree. I do feel like the average American, I think this is a good thing, even though it can be frustrating when it comes down to actually putting it into action. It is a good thing now. I do feel like most people are just kind of like, why are we in a war? Like, why are we doing that right now? It does feel like I don't run into a lot of like war hawk civilian people. Like
there's very few regular people who are war hawks. It's like, but they can be turned into that if they watch enough television.
If you tuned in on October 7th.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, that's usually what happens. It's like the country feels a certain way, and then I don't even know enough about October 7th to be like, it was an op, it was this and that.
Yeah.
But what I mean is like, that happens, and it's the very Michael Crichton state of fear model, where it's just like, you have to just constantly up people's blood pressure to the point where they get divorced from their morals, and you have to pull the fire alarm.
Yeah, it takes like a constant stream of fake stories and propaganda to get everybody to continue to say, it's okay, it's just another few billion. But they wouldn't feel that way. People would not support that if they weren't being told constantly that they need to support that, whether it's on the television or on their cell phones.
we're going to get you right back to the episode, but I just wanted to let you guys know of a few other things we offer at Rare Candy Industries. We have a Substack with free and paid subscription options. Free subscribers get access to all written content. That includes Bob's Red Pill. That's the best thing going on the internet right now. Trust me. Paid subscribers get full access to our premium episode feed. And that's just every episode we don't necessarily want to share with the general public, if you know what I'm saying. Again, that's rarecandy.substack.com. We also have merch. That link's a little long for me to say right now, but go to the description, go to our merch store, and find a shirt that's right for you. We have Rare Candy shirts, Dr. Bronner soap label shirts, Rishi mushroom shirts, all types of stuff there. Check it out. There's got to be something for you. And lastly, check us out on social media. On Instagram, we're Rare Candy Pod, but on Twitter, we're at Rare Candy Pod 1. All right, enough of that. Let's get you back into the episode. So before we get to your time there, what about what happened on October 7th? Because I still don't know. I'm not saying that like I know what happened, but what I mean is like I've been told the craziest story from pro-Israel side. I've been told actually literally nothing happened from like other people. I'm like, well, something happened, right? Like it was a big day. What in your opinion happened that like shocked the world? You know, like it was the craziest thing in the world when it happened. Like it was on a dime. Everybody panicked again. So what do you think happened? Like
no, it was definitely real. I mean, it was definitely real. But if you remember, you know, in the first few weeks, we were told, you know, I think it was 1,400 or 1,200 Israelis were killed, and then very quietly that number went down and down and down until it reached around like 600. So the death toll was cut in half without anyone even noticing. And a lot of people point out the fact that there's something called the Hannibal Directive.
Yeah.
And it's a military policy of Israel. And they would rather kill both Palestinians and Israelis, both Hamas and Israelis, than allow Hamas to bring Israelis back to Gaza and then have political bargaining power. So instead of giving the enemy, you know, political bargaining power, just shoot a couple Israelis. What's the big deal? That's how they see it. So a lot of people have done research and reporting on this, namely, the Gray Zone and yeah, exactly. And they have put together reports from different Israeli media outlets and international media outlets and interviews from people who lived in these areas and these communities right outside of Gaza and who were at the music festival. And they were getting shot at by, you know, helicopters. They had their houses were being shelled. These are not things that Hamas or the Palestinian militant groups have access of. Like they don't have helicopters. They don't have anything to shell an entire community. They have, you know, RPGs and they have guns. And if you look at the damage done to a lot of these houses where a lot of the October 7th people were killed, these houses are destroyed. These houses are leveled. So this points a lot of people to say, you know, the Israeli military kind of flipped the switch. They said, we don't want Hamas, our enemy, to have, you know, leverage over us. We don't want them to take any hostages. So let's just kill everybody. And there are interviews in Israeli media where they're interviewing certain IDF soldiers, and the soldiers will be being interviewed after October 7th and say, my superior told me to shoot at those few houses. And I told the superior, I said, I think there might be Israelis there. And he says, I don't care, just shoot. And so these are direct quotes from people who were fighting Hamas on October 7th. So people definitely died. Israelis definitely died. Israelis definitely were killed by Hamas. But the real question is how many were killed by Hamas? How many were killed by Israel? And I think that's the main people that the thing that people will argue over.
Because I found it so crazy. I mean, Israel per capita, right, is the most heavily funded military. I mean, that's
for sure.
It's so strange to me that Hamas
that was even allowed to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Like it feels weird if that's your number one thing is keeping Hamas out of Israel with the money that you have. It's not a huge area in terms of the rest of the world. It seems strange that that's happened. I immediately thought that the Ukraine. My brain just I tend to get so divorced from like what actually happened. I feel like it's kind of bad. But my brain just immediately goes, okay, Ukraine thing stopped happening. Now it's time to do this. And we're basically got a couple months of this before it's a new election, basically almost a calendar year before the next election. And again, can't vote on it, but I can see it being a huge tactic, a good way for Biden to save face too, because Biden's approval rating's not great. It was a good way for him to just like, cool, well, I'm going to take care of Israel. You know what I mean? Like it's a good way, because you and I can talk about this all the time, but the average American boomer or, you know, even Gen X person is kind of like, just kind of like, yeah, make sure Israel's taken care of. You know, we don't want anti-Semitism to win, right? Like that's essentially the way they would look at this.
I think the way Biden is handling this, like if you look at the polls, and I don't look at them very closely, but I do see numbers every few days. This whole conflict, the way Biden is handling this, you know, the Democratic Party is largely supports Palestine, at least the younger ones, at least, and so this has really, really, truly hurt him. You know, I know people, just, you know, people who I see when I get my coffee, just people around New York City who are clearly Democrats. They clearly voted for Joe Biden. I don't have to even ask. They even say, like, I'm not voting for that guy. Like, you know, what's more important than genocide, they'll say. So I think there has to be something else. There has to be something else coming down the pipe that will, you know, give Biden you know, an upper hand, because it's definitely not this conflict.
No, I guess not. And you know, it just feels weird to see, like you said, like after all this happens, there's this reaction. It doesn't seem like you get censored for being pro-Palestine on the internet the way that you did for saying that certain viruses escaped from, or you know, quote unquote, escaped from labs, or that certain injections can cause myocarditis and things like that. It doesn't feel like you get censored all that much, like if you're just a person typing that in on the internet. However, like anybody with a platform, if they said they support Palestine, they were removed from their job a lot of times. You know,
no,
like
yeah, of course. And I mean, it's definitely not the same. Like, you know, you could have got kicked off Twitter simply for saying, you know, don't take the COVID shot. And, you know, people are tweeting about Palestine all the time. I will say my account, once I landed in Israel, a couple of days later, I went to, you know, the West Bank, and I tweeted one thing. And you can look at my Twitter even right now. Every tweet that I tweeted while I was there, and since I came back until like a week ago, was behind a sensitive content warning. Even if I made a silly joke about MSNBC with no curse words, no gore, no anything. Every single one of my tweets was behind a sensitive content ban, which is, you know, that's some sort of censorship, of course. But there's another type of, you know, social censorship when it comes to Palestine, you know, like in the workplace. It's so easy for, you know, right now, just a Jewish person in the workplace to see their colleague post something pro-Palestine and say that they don't feel safe as a Jewish person in the workplace because this person's anti-Semitic, blah, blah, blah. And I know people personally, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people I don't know personally that have been reprimanded by their boss or told not to do this or fired because of a simple social media post that was seen by just another Jewish colleague. Not even like they're disturbing someone who's very powerful. It's just a colleague.
I'm so glad my boss probably could not locate either country on the map. I'm so glad. Yeah, there would be like, is that a trucking company? I have no idea. But yeah, no, you'd see it. Again, a little bit of a contrarian view in my head when I would see some of these people get fired. I'd be like, yeah, but how did you feel when I didn't want to take a shot? Huh? Maybe setting that precedent wasn't a good idea, because they would always say, oh, it's a private company. They can do whatever they want. Private company, you gotta do that. Again, no, I don't love the reason that it happened. I do love, like, I guess I like to teach people a lesson. Don't set a precedent just because you're angry in the moment. Don't set a precedent for other bad things to happen. It will work its way back to you if you aren't one of the, you know, top people in the world. It will come back to haunt you at some point. Once the pendulum swings or whatever, it goes the other way, and you're not riding the party line. People need to realize that. And I think it's so you went. I want to know about this. Now, have you ever been there before? Have you ever been in the past? Is your first time in Israel?
Yeah, it was my first time.
Crazy. I mean, was it like
it was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
Did you see the worst of the worst stuff? Like, did you really see?
I didn't see the worst of the worst, because I wasn't, you know, they're not letting journalists into Gaza unless you know, are working for CNN, and
Right.
the state of Israel is fact checking and censoring every single one of your reports. They're not letting anyone in if you don't have government approval, which I couldn't get. But here, I'll start in the very beginning because it is kind of it's telling how authoritarian Israel has become. I went to the airport. I was 15 steps into the airport, going to the El Al airport gate, which is like the national Israeli airline, the government airline. And some lady with a thick Israeli accent, she asked me if I'm going to Tel Aviv. In the middle of the floor, I'm not even in any desk line or any line at all. I say, yes, ma'am. She says, okay, come with me. And I go to this place where there's some guy, also an Israeli. He has a laptop. And I don't think this is legal, especially since they're clearly not Americans. We're in New York. They work for a government-funded airline. I would assume these are some type of, Israeli feds or intelligence personnel in some capacity. And they ask normal questions at first. And after telling them I'm a journalist, they go through my phone. They ask me to show them my DMs. They go through all of my messages of all of my apps. They watch the first few minutes of some of my reports. They ask to see my Instagram, which is private. And they watch one of my videos. This is in New York. This is at JFK Airport. She watched one of my videos from when I was in Paris when they were having those economic riots. And I totally forgot I did this, but the report starts with me saying, former Rothschild investment banker and current French president Emmanuel Macron, blah, 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 blah. But like I introduced Emmanuel Macron as a Rothschild, which is, known as some, anti-Semitic conspiracy. I mean, it's entirely factual. She gave me the craziest look. She walked away with my phone. She came back maybe 45 minutes later. I was just standing there. And she gave me the phone back. She asked to see my bag and she let me go. But it was truly an authoritarian start to my trip. Before I even got to Israel, I was in New York. So that was the very, very beginning.
So, okay. So you get there. Now, what do you do? Like, it's obviously, this isn't like, it's not the same as going to, East Palestine, right? It's not the same as going to even Hawaii, right? That was a big thing. This is the big leagues, right? Where you're going right now. This is not a one-off event that's happening in a town somewhere. This is a place that's used to being armed, used to being secure, used to being locked down. How hard was it to do your job there?
It was like I got out of the airport. I got into a taxi. I said, I'm going to this place. And this is the first time that I spoke to an Israeli, like that I caught the vibe a little bit. And he turns around to me and says, the first question, he goes, "Are you Jewish?" I'm not even hello or where, like, that's his first question. And I say, well, my mother was Jewish. And he turns around in the car while the car is driving, big smile on his face. He says, "Welcome home." Wow. And I was blown away. I was like, oh, this is where I am right now. Okay. And so I spent a good amount of time after I got there in the Palestinian villages of the West Bank. And some parts of the West Bank are as close as, 20 miles from Gaza. So even there, you could hear, distant explosions, bombs constantly, kind of like the sound of thunder. And they would fly the fighter jets really low in some parts of the West Bank. I would assume is just an intimidation tactic to remind people that they're kind of helpless. But in the West Bank, there's all these groups of people. They're called settlers. People say that all the time. And the settlers are Jewish people. They're Israeli citizens. They're either from Israel or they're Jewish Europeans or Jewish Americans. And instead of living in Israel, they illegally put their compounds of houses on this Palestinian land in the West Bank illegally. And even though it's illegal by Israeli law and international law, it's entirely, financially supported by the Israeli establishment. They pay Jews to build their compounds on this land. They run water to them, electricity. They give them giant subsidies so they don't even have to work, and they provide security. And the Israeli state is willing to pay this money to them because they just want to expand. They just want a bigger Israel. So they pay these people's entire lives just because they're essentially helping Israel grow geographically. So the very nature of these settlers is, to take this land by force. That's why they're getting paid by the Israeli government, even though the Palestinians have, the legal ownership deeds of their homes and blah, blah, blah. And after October 7th, the state of Israel turned all the settlers in the West Bank to military reservists. So these settlers were given rifles and long guns and drones and military uniforms and other equipment. And so these Palestinians, many of them, they were like cattle ranchers and farmers. they always had to deal with these settlers, but now the settlers are armed to the teeth since October 7th. And since then, the settlers have just kicked 17 entire Palestinian villages to leave permanently. They kicked them out of their houses, out of their communities, off their land. And, this is a buzzword we always hear. We always hear ethnic cleansing. But that's exactly what this is happening in the West Bank. It's ethnic cleansing. They're just kicking anyone who's not Jewish out of their houses, and they're totally allowed, because after October 7th, no law enforcement agency, no one is willing to enforce the law in the West Bank or stand up for the Palestinians. The settlers were just given carte blanche. So I was just in all of these villages, living with them for a while and watching all of this happen.
Yeah, and then the whole time you're thinking, like, man, all the work I do here, can I even post it on the internet? Right? I mean, like, you there's a chance that it just gets wiped off. Like, I mean, especially if they're already flagging your account, just knowing that you're in the West Bank and stuff like that, scanning your stuff at the JFK airport. It's kind of harrowing.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm all the way over there, and I tweet a photo of a Palestinian village that has been ethnically cleansed. There's still children's toys everywhere. The houses have been destroyed by the settlers, so the Palestinians don't come back in time for them to get they get paperwork from the Israeli government to start building a settlement there. But I take a photo of it and I post it on Twitter, and within 20 minutes, it's behind like a sensitive content warning. I'm all the way over here and I can't even tweet a photo. 800 people have seen this photo. Like, what am I doing here?
It's the weirdest thing. I mean, even over here, like, you think about, like, okay, it's a huge problem. We redefine what anti-Semitism means in a sense that if you take one side in a war, that means you're a violent anti-Semite that needs to be dealt with. And it's strange that people can't understand that, okay, you see the commercials, right? They're like, post the blue square. They're doing the blue square now. Post the blue square.
I didn't see that. I know.
Yeah. There's a blue square now. I saw it was really funny because there was one guy, like, they were showing who was posting it, and they showed like one guy, and it was like a black guy.
Yeah,
I'm like, that guy's
good
not gonna post the blue square. That guy, he's like, I posted the blue square. I was like, no, you did not. Show me, like, show me your account that you did. I don't think you did. But he was. It's a commercial where they're like, yeah, anti-Semitic. They make up this number. It's like 180%. It's up. So you're like, okay, I guess it is.
Wait, was that an NFL game? I remember seeing that.
That's where that's the only TV I actually watch is that. So I'm sure it was.
I need to know how they ran those numbers. I
did see how they because Congress passed bills, saying that anti-Semitism has been up 1,800%, et cetera, et cetera. And you look at the Anti-Defamation League and how they got those numbers. They considered every pro-Palestine protest a public display of anti-Semitism. So you had hundreds of these protests happening. Of course, it's up. There were no protests before. Now there's a bunch.
Yeah, a big journalist tweets it, like a big journalist tweets something that doesn't, glorify Israel, that could be skewed as anti, there's all these things are on the rise. And I just remember, like, I don't know, I hear some people talk about it. It's like, oh yeah, and like anti-Semitism's on the rise. I'm like, and they think it's people in like the Nazi boots, like walking around in America. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't really see that. Sorry. Like, I don't know. That's not adding up to me. But yeah, like, you see people that speak out, and then immediately Chase Bank will tweet and be like, well, this person's not banking here anymore. And you're like, okay, it sounds like the power dynamic's been established in a sense, like, and that's something you're not supposed to point out. But I get that, like, okay, if this is about power, right? If this is about this, like, there's this anti-Semitist thing is in power right now, I'm like, I don't know that that's true. Like, if people can freeze all your accounts, you can, and even if it's not even like saying the Jewish people own that, it's saying that whoever owns that, it's in their best interest to be pro-Israel. So they will then censor, get rid of, if everything's done on your phone, it's quite easy. It's all centralized. And every app on your phone, most of those apps are pro-Israel, if you ask them. So it's like, it's kind of scary. It's kind of like a Whitney Webb style dystopia for anybody that's trying to truly make noise. I don't think we're there yet, thank God. But it's just, it's.
And the anti-Semitism, like, that has been that was used in order to establish Israel. You know, this is not a new thing. This is the thing that they will go to first. I was just reading a book and it was explaining how before Israel was established, before World War II really got going, there was so much anti-Semitism in Poland. And there were Zionists in Poland who wrote letters to the prime minister and to the government. And they were saying, listen, you guys are starting to write, you guys are saying there's too many Jewish people here. You're saying that you don't like how the Jewish people think. You don't think that they have the same culture as the Polish people, blah, blah, blah. They were drafting anti-Jewish legislation. And this guy was saying, he was a Zionist, he was a Jewish guy. He said, how about we just start sending the Jews to get them out of your country for you. You don't want them anymore. Let's send them to Palestine. So the whole idea, he was saying, you don't have to be, not every Jew hater is an anti-Zionist. Jew haters can be Zionists because they might be helping us build Israel. So this whole idea of using anti-Semitism to promote the state of Israel, it was used to establish the entire state.
Yeah, it's weird. Anytime somebody comes out with this new cause, like demographic X is being discriminated against, and you're like, okay, literally all things that have actually caused harm in the world is just like straight up the people we put in charge just fucking over the whole population. I'm so tired of hearing about this person, this group right here and there. Therefore, support this cause, vote this, vote that, and it's like, I see what you're trying to do. Thanks.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah. It's like I know what true evil is. I went through 2020 through now. Still, like I know what true evil is. I know who's doing it. Thanks. But you wanted to talk about this, and I'm glad we haven't brought this guy up in a while. I hadn't heard a lot from RFK lately. And he's a big Israel guy.
A big Israel guy.
I saw him on Dave Smith the other day, and
I watched that as well.
It was like 7 seconds of just dead air when they asked him about Israel, and he was like, thought we weren't going to do that. Yeah. And
wait, what show is this?
The Dave Smith show.
Yeah.
He was on, and like Dave Smith, he doesn't play around with that because that's his money going over there. Dave Smith doesn't play. He's
great.
I'm a big fan. I would love to talk to him sometime. He's really funny, and I think
I don't think he's ever said anything where I'm like, nah, I'm not like, I don't
genuine. He's genuine.
He's super clear-eyed about everything.
Yeah, and he, look, Cy and I, you, Jeremy as well, we've all been fans of RFK's work, what he's done for a lot of things. That has always been an issue. He's always been pro-Israel to a crazy degree. And also now I don't see, I do see him talk about like pharma and stuff that is shooting him to the top in popularity and all that. Now I just see like climate change in Israel now, and I'm like, cool, man, this is I kind of hope that
Can you imagine if he wasn't that way? He'd probably be murdered already,
Oh, sure.
One keeping him hanging on by a thread. Dude.
Climate change in Israel, my two favorite things. Yeah, come on. Like I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Jeremy?
I used to work for him. I did a lot of research for the real Anthony Fauci. Like I really think like Children's Health Defense, the organization. That's very nice of you.
Yeah, it's great. But I mean, all that aside, all great stuff. Yeah, that's
he's great. And Children's Health Defense is truly suing the FDA and the CDC and Google and Facebook. Like they're actually, educating mothers. They're truly saving children's lives. I really believe that. But I don't believe what he's doing right now. Like the Israel shtick. When he speaks, I mean, this is truly just an opinion. When he speaks about, corporate capture or, cleaning up the rivers, when he talks about so many things, turnkey totalitarianism, he's always talking about big tech, etc. He speaks with such passion, and you could see it in his eyes that he really believes what he's saying. And I feel like when he's talking about Israel, it's like he's reading a script, like someone's holding a gun under the table. It's the same thing no matter what. Like it's still bad. I just don't believe that he actually believes what he's saying, because he just says it so differently than when he's talking about every other thing that he's been talking about for his entire life.
Yeah, the tone is way different.
Yes.
Because he's such an authentic guy. You could tell he's really coming from his heart space on a lot of this. And Yeah, it's like like when Max Bloom like received wisdom almost, or some
Mhm.
weird script like you allude to.
Yeah, and it's like he doesn't. I remember he had that one. He didn't show up to Max's show. I saw that was that thing. Like he just like didn't show up on him, and it's like because he probably didn't really feel like defending that for an hour. Like it
Mhm.
can only hurt. It can only hurt
It could only
things.
hurt, exactly. It can only like if a video goes viral of you looking like an idiot and a jerk and an uninformed, uninformed guy. Like it's not going to help you. So you might as well just cancel. People will talk shit because you canceled, and then it'll be over in a week. But
Yeah.
I feel like even he's been. I don't know if you've been seeing. He's hanging out with that guy, Rabbi Shmuley. Have you seen that?
That guy. Yes, I have, and I have to mute just because I'm trying to be a better person. I don't know. I just certain things you see. I'm like that's real.
I mean, it is
like
like when this happened, it was like he said something positive about the Pink Floyd guy, Roger Waters.
Roger Waters, yeah.
And then right after that, he was caught on videotape telling a group of people that there's a scientific paper that argues that Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people have better COVID outcomes. And he was saying, I don't know what it means, but it shows you that viruses can be ethnically targeted. I'm just putting that out there. And it was filmed by a New York Post reporter, and it went viral. And so within like hours, definitely days, he was accused of being, anti-Semitic. He was accused of hating Jews. Even the Democratic Party, 100 Congress people signed a letter likening him to Adolf Hitler. That happened. So, he, like, to prove that he wasn't anti-Semitic, he began saying that he is going to be the most fervent supporter of Israel out of any of the presidential candidates ever. Like he just went the entire opposite direction, instead of, putting his feet down. And so that's when he started hanging out with that Rabbi Shmuley, who was like a crazy fake rabbi television show host. It's the most silly thing. This rabbi, like, you're running a presidential campaign. This rabbi has a daughter. This rabbi has written a thing called it's called Shalom in the Home. It's about having sex as Orthodox Jews. And his daughter runs a Jewish sex toy store. I don't really know what that is, but that's what she claims it is. And so, yeah, it's insane. You're running a presidential campaign and you're walking around with a guy to prove you're not anti-Semitic, who wrote a book called Shalom in the Home about Orthodox Jewish people having sex, and who has a daughter with a kosher sex store. It's like the most, inappropriate thing for a presidential candidate to be seen with this guy over and over and over. He just had a talk with him in New York. It was him, Rabbi Shmuley, and Sheldon Adelson, who was like the biggest funder of the Republican Party and the Likud Party in Israel, his wife. So it was those three. It's like an insane triple threat. So I don't know what's happening with him, but it really is unfortunate, because it's so crazy how he could be such a defender of, of just like the entire freedom movement, and especially children's rights. And at the same time, he's supporting something that's killing children by the thousands over there. And I know we need to separate domestic policy and foreign policy, but it kind of is domestic policy when you're saying, I'm going to give Israel everything and anything they need. It's like, that's our money. That is domestic policy.
Yeah. And also it's a failure of a platform to me, is when like all this money needs to go to climate change, all this money needs to go to Israel, and like right now, like, people can't afford anything. It just seems dumb to me. It doesn't. I get it why he's doing it. It's not dumb for him to do that, because there is a way that checks a lot of boxes. Those are two big ops, in my opinion. Right
exactly.
Now is climate and that. But for people that were excited about him, and I was always tentative in a sense that I just wanted him to boost certain topics,
shake things up.
Yeah, shake it up. Just boost certain topics. I did not see him as a viable candidate. I just don't think we'll ever have an anti-vax president. I just don't think it's going to happen. we can wish, and we can at least hope that maybe they're a part of certain things.
Yeah.
But I just was kind of like, no, I didn't ever saw it as that way. It was always going to be Trump versus Biden to me. But it was nice to do that. But now I just don't. I feel like losing that bark a little bit, like, you know, and losing that, or I should say, losing the bite a little bit when after October 7th. I mean, we all saw it, and I'd completely forgotten about that paper that he had talked about with the, you know, ethnically targeted viruses. That is interesting. That is kind of a turning point.
The only news I saw about RFK was all those Instagram videos he liked. I'm like,
you know,
dog.
The TikTok. He said, "Wow."
Yeah, he said, "Whoa."
He said, "Wow," and it was the one with the smiley face with all the hearts around it. That was a good one. And he was like, "Do you?" He blamed his intern, which perhaps is true. I could see that. I could see that. But then also, I was funny when I saw like MAGA people like using that against him, because they view him as like a threat to steal votes from Trump. And there were like a lot of like MAGA accounts going like, just like a Kennedy, disgusting. Like they were doing this thing, and I'm like, dog, you're going for Trump, dude. Like what who cares? Like,
I thought we were past this.
The Me Too movement literally is like against your boy and anybody who supports him. Like it was literally created to stop that, and as a result of him winning, and you want to Me Too a Kennedy? Like, come on.
If Trump posted on like a TikTok of a girl's like butt, wow, with heart eyes emojis, that would make me think of him so much more. Yeah, I would like him so much more. That's so funny.
He should.
He
should allow for pictures on Truth Social, and just
also, I mean, was he wrong, dude? Come on.
I mean, hey, like, respect.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen this like another this kind of like I don't know. I mean, I don't care if it was like, who cares? But there is a New York Post article from like 2008, and they got a hold of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s personal journal. He's like given to him. Yeah, so he's, I mean, in terms of, you know, people who are easy to, you know, get blackmail on or take advantage of. I mean, he has a very serious sex addiction. Clearly, like it was in these papers. Like he was married at the time, and he was so he hated his sex addiction so much that if he was on his way home from a party and he had sex with a lady, he would write in his journal, like he was the victim. He would write in his journal, "Got mugged on the way home from dinner." And mugged meant he gave into his sexual.
Right.
I mean, he's like, it's, if anyone is easy to take advantage of, it's someone who's that crazy about having sex with any woman they meet. You know, you just honeypot the guy.
It's wild. And like I follow some really cool like YouTube channels that are obsessed with the UFO file. And it's the way it's kind of like a catch-all thing for a lot of these guys, where it's like, you know, Trump didn't reveal the Kennedy assassination stuff, like he said he was going to, because of the UFO file implications, because that was one of the reasons Kennedy got assassinated. And there's all these ties to like Oswald working at like, you know, like space tech, and so there's actually a lot of interesting things about it. But I just they're really interested in what like Robert Kennedy's doing right now because of his ties to the UFO file. Obviously, if they're correct, that's he's a big one. So it's quite interesting. To be honest, it sounds crazy when I say it, but like they're not just speculating a lot of times. Like there are a lot of people with ties, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sure there's something, you know, I'm sure there's something there. So
ties to what?
So like there's always been, you know, top secret like disclosure stuff that's been threatened. They think Kennedy was threatening to disclose.
And then he got
shot. Enough. So Bobby in a similar fashion. Now they even think that the ops of like, well, the mob did it, you know, even the alternative thing, like they're leaving one big part, and there's the UFO file and stuff. And like they get into like, you know, it's fun, it's entertaining stuff. But anyways, I only say that to say this, like it's interesting with RFK like running for president, and he has like just all these angles. Like everybody's got an angle for him. Like some people want him for children's health defense, some people want him for, you know, the Kennedy aspect, some people want him for the UFO stuff. Like these guys genuinely are just like, I just want to see him get in and like release, you know, UFO stuff, like to avenge, you know, his family. I'm like, I don't know about that. But I just I don't know if that's gonna
single
happen.
issue voter, single issue.
Yeah,
voter.
but I respect it. Dude.
That's funny.
Yeah, I respect it. So
I will see people say like he's ruining his campaign with this Israel stuff, with this climate change stuff. But that's not how you ruin a campaign. That's like you will more likely to be put in office if you bend a knee with some of these issues.
Well, it's crazy how I was thinking about this the other day, how complete the propaganda is, to where a bunch of boomer Democrats are against a Kennedy. You know, it's like, it's so complete.
Yes.
The propaganda. It's like it's completely factored in at this point. It's crazy.
They love their doctors more than being Democrats a lot of times, dude.
Yeah,
like, they really do. Like it's if you talk to anybody that demographic, not anybody, but you know, a lot of them, they're just like, why would you go against the doctors, dude? Like, why would you? It's just that simple. They don't have any ammo. They just say, why are you going against the doctors, idiot?
Yeah.
And then that's their defense. And then they just they shut down when you say something back.
But it is good. It is good that he's going on CNN and Fox and MSNBC and Joe Rogan and just talking about, you know, corporate capture of our regulatory agencies. Just all these ideas that we are very, like, we know a lot about. You know, a lot of the ideas in dissolving illusions that vaccines, you know, didn't solve a lot of the issues that we're dealing with. It's just that's a good idea to put out there, whether you win or lose, and whether you like Israel or not.
That's all it's for. He's got a last name that everyone knows, and he's saying things that like aren't really even like watered down versions of what I believe. It's like actually verbatim.
No, that's one thing I respect about him. He's like he doesn't speak like a baby. He doesn't speak in really like even layman's terms. Like he speaks like an expert and like an adult, and it's really nice to hear that, especially coming from somebody, you know, running for office.
Absolutely. So
from the 5 to the 6, we be in the mix with that red candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, can't do shit.
I want to talk about Neuralink, because every time you've come on, we've talked about Musk the last couple times. Last time it was a little bit of Twitter stuff, but I believe the first guy got chipped with Neuralink recently. God. And it's funny when you see like guys like Lex Friedman be like, "Lucky" in the replies. You're like, you already are Neuralink. You literally already are.
That's funny.
Yeah, like you were probably, he's probably conceived like in some Futurama glass thing or something. I don't know. They even think that guy's real. So I just laughed. But yeah, it's so cringe, the stuff that you see. And then like, of course, Elon the other day is talking about we need a carbon tax and all that, which is just,
it's crazy that he can be chipping people, actually chipping people. Has so many policy proposals that are so similar to like the World Economic Forum and the ruling elite, and still, you know, he just has to say yes exclamation point on a tweet that criticizes, you know, trans people, and you have every like MAGA guy, everyone on Twitter like thinks he's a savior.
It's crazy. This is like an old school RC episode. Got us three on it. We're talking about how, because we've been on this for a minute, how it's like, I don't know. I
probably have said that before. It's so like yes exclamation point every day. That's all it takes.
They're immune to. They got beaten down pretty hard, like the MAGA people. They got beaten down pretty hard. I'll give them that. They're and I'm actually probably the most sympathetic towards them out of us three. Like I like Trump, like I do. But the thing about it is they've been beaten down a lot. So any form of flattery that comes their way, they just take it and they're like, "You're my best friend now," and they do that. And
they latch on.
They're a very passionate group. Like Trump's doing really well right now.
I mean, there's a lot of redeemable qualities of like the MAGA people. But
Elon Musk makes electric fucking cars, dude. You don't even like those. And like, of course he's gonna want a carbon tax. Of course he's gonna be into climate change. His business is built off climate change.
Like the personality cult is so strong that if someone talks shit about a Tesla, which is a climate change car, The
It
MAGA
is.
people will defend it immediately.
I
Yeah.
know, because it's epic science. It's
yeah.
like it's epic. It's
Love
like
it.
it's epic, like MIT science. Like this is high IQ. South African man makes car sustainable vehicle, and he hates libtards like me. Which again, there's parts of it where I'm like, okay, I see what you're saying. But anyways, Neuralink chipping the brain. What do you know about Neuralink? Like that what it's trying to do, what he says it does, and what really we think could happen with it.
The actual technology behind Neuralink, I feel like I'm not super versed on it. I mean, but the idea of transhumanism and normalizing the idea of merging the computer and the brain, and biologically, it's I mean, it's not like they're not. They can censor my tweets, but with a chip in my brain, they can censor my thoughts, which is like sounds silly, but that's exactly what's happening. And
it's already a thought crime. It's already it's just so on the nose, and I could just say I don't even need to know anything about it, but just knowing about who these people are, I know that their understanding of biology and neuroscience far overestimates their ability to actually put a chip in your brain, and the claims that they're making are going to be oversold, and the dangers are going to be undersold, just like every other aspect of every angle of this topic, that we've ever discovered is always the same, always the fucking same. Yeah, I'd put my whole life on it.
Would you I asked this on Twitter, but I just want to know. I want to talk. Okay. Would you rather participate in the Pfizer clinical trials for COVID, the vaccine, or get chipped? Neuralink.
Okay. So it's either get the COVID vaccine or get a chip in my brain.
But like the early, like we're like in development, you're in the clinical trials, like not even the product that hit the market. Yeah. Like the product that hit the market, we already have issues, like so many issues with. But like before I'm assuming that they even made any changes.
I'm excited to hear with what you guys say, but I truly think I would take the shot.
Yeah.
So
I feel like I could some way I could detoxify, do something. I feel like if the chip's in me, the chip's in me.
For me, I believe in some forms of reincarnation. So I'm just, let's speed it up at that point. That's the way I feel. Let's put me in the trials. I'm just like, let's start over because life sucks right now.
Well, and ironically, there's no way we'd know this. It wouldn't make sense for this bet. But ironically, the Pfizer trials is where they used their dankest shit with the least amount of side effects. And then they switched over to process B for manufacturing. So technically, you had a good shot of surviving the trials because they actually were super careful with their production.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's like actually, you got to get kind of good if you're in the trials.
Had to get, okay. So perhaps framing the wrong. Now, I could see a person being like, nah, dude, I will never put that shit in my body. I'll get the Neuralink chip. Like maybe it's not as bad as I think. And then the minute they get it in, they're like, I just got the thought. I should go to CVS.
Yep. 2 for
get
1.
Get a COVID vaccine now that I've been shipped. It sounds great. I don't know why. It just popped into my head.
If the chip can control my thoughts, like I rather die with my own thoughts than get chipped and I'll be dying. I'm thinking like, oh man, who knows what I'm thinking? I might be saying, Elon Musk tried to save me, but he couldn't.
It's this, 100%. It's this and the Apple VR headset. It's just a hard line in the sand for me. No.
What's the Apple one? What's the like? I don't know.
Goggles, just the fucking goggles, and it just tells you like the thing I see. The thing on Twitter I saw was like you put it on and then it shows you your left hand side of your stove. It's got 5 minutes left, and your right hand it's got 7 minutes left. Like you'd be cooking with that, and you need 2 timers to show in virtual reality. But my girlfriend showed me this like TikTok or something of this like boomer woman puts it on and she immediately freaks out and starts running. She's in her apartment or her house kitchen.
Whoa.
She puts it like her daughter puts it on. She's like, here, try this out. Puts it on. She's immediately goes, what's that? And bolts headfirst into her fucking microwave. And the thing shatters and completely destroys it in 1 second. It's like you forgot you were in your kitchen in 1 second and just fucking ran into it. It's like, holy shit.
Damn. Yeah, that's no, but truly, like we get back to Neuralink, like the it's supposed to, what Elon says it's supposed to do is like for people who have like paralysis, I think maybe dementia or like any kind of cognitive thing, it could be a way to gain, use or perhaps send messages to the limbs that or whatever's paralyzed. I mean, I don't know the exact term. That's his idea, is that it's just going to heal people. But I'm like, okay, I can see that being an invention and making a bunch of money off of it, because that would be life changing. My dad has Parkinson's, and he had a similar thing done, and it looks to be working really well. It's more of just a wiring thing that happens where to stop like certain shaking and calibrate his balance and stuff, and it looks like it works. Now, to me, it's like I'm trying to think of what Neuralink maximalism looks like. Where
I mean, Musk says, like, I mean, he's quoted so many times saying Neuralink will save the human race. And it's like, when we're talking about like like if we're doing something to the entire human race, even though you're saying saving, like this is too much. I'm sorry.
That's why I hate these people. They all think we're so like truly all these people that are like AI maximalist, Neuralink maximalist. I'm like, how bad do you think we're constructed, man? Like, just that we need like all these shots and all these chips to move.
That's transhumanism. Yeah, they think
and if they're saying that, like, there are these few neurological disorders that the chip can help you with, and but next you say like, okay, well, there's a few mental disorders that the chip can help you with. Next you say there's a few social behaviors that are they're because of your head's wrong, that the chip can help you with. And before you know it, like, if you break the law, you get a chip. If you think these things, you need to get a chip. Like, it doesn't stop. It's just they just blame something on your brain and say like, we can fix it with a chip. And as long as it's, as long as people choose to get the chip or not, it's like, I don't think that will last very long. Just like you don't choose to get a vaccine.
And what if you have a neurological issue because you got heavy metals in your brain? Is the chip? How does the chip fix that?
Yeah, put a titanium chip.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's not real. See, heavy metals in the brain's just not real. That doesn't happen.
Didn't happen.
They don't go there.
Yeah, they don't.
Chip will solve those thoughts.
They go outwards of the brain. They just go to the metals are very brain conscious. I'm just, anytime I see this stuff, I'm always just like, guys, you guys know this is dumb, right? And everyone's like, what? I mean, is it like, it's kind of, I get it. Like, and I that's how you would introduce it to the market, is that as a life-saving medical tool for people with a certain condition.
Of course, you're trying to help people. These people don't, these people are going to live a horrible life without this, without my grand technology. But it's, obviously it's going to be introduced that way. How else would you introduce it? But even in the trials, in the last 2 years and 5 years ago, when they're doing trials, the monkeys, they're all dying.
Yeah.
So like, I wonder who this, I haven't read his name. I don't know if his name exists. I don't know if it's public information. Who got the chip? Because the only way it was, there's no press release. All of the articles online are just quoting Musk's tweet that says we just chipped someone. It's very, I don't want to say, it's just unprofessional. Like, there's no, you go to the Neuralink website, there's no press releases that we chip somebody. There's no interviews with, the CEO of the company or the scientists of the company. It's just Musk's tweet that's causing all of this news storm.
Yeah.
What's the interface? What's the?
Well, yeah, he said he didn't know.
What part of the brain does it work on, and what does it instruct it to do? And what are his whole thing is he's not going to stop it. He's addicted to this giant market share. Everything he does is about trying to get into the most hands of the most people possible, whether it be cars or social media or different shit like that, or making humans go into space or whatever. It's not like we just want to solve this one neurological issue and then be done with it. That's such a small, tiny fraction of the human population.
Right, I just don't think there's the market. I feel like he wants such a bigger market than that. That's what scares me. It's like, the Tesla cars aren't just for like the South Park Prius people, like they're for everybody eventually. I saw the truck on the street the other day in Los Gatos, the Tesla truck, and there was just a bunch of people just taking pictures as though Jesus returned.
Yeah,
like it was just I couldn't believe it. I was like, that thing's stupid. Like it's not cool. It doesn't look cool. It doesn't seem to do anything other than whatever I need from a truck. A current regular truck like seems to do what I would want. I don't need that. But
you can't tow shit with the truck. The battery life goes to like 0. Well, you
not
can't
towing.
tow.
If you got a Tesla truck, somebody else is moving your shit for you.
I remember I was like talking about this on Twitter a while back and I was like, yeah, the truck's not going to work because people that use trucks need to tow shit. And they were like, do people actually use trucks for that? I'm like, well, yeah, some people do. That's
A
like,
lot of people
not
do, of
everyone.
course.
Yeah, like definitely some people use trucks for towing shit.
Well, that's
Have
the other
you have you ever seen the movie that was like produced by the Obamas on Netflix? Leave It
No,
All Behind.
I haven't seen it yet.
There's a scene where Teslas, hundreds of them, are self-driving themselves into a traffic jam, and they're all just crashing and killing everybody. But yeah, no, it's really like it's a movie that I would love for you guys to watch and talk about it, because there are so many crazy omens in the movie, and it was produced by some of the most powerful people in our government, so it's great.
That was crazy seeing the credit. I've seen like the credit card thing that like slides the sequence where it says like produced by Barack and Michelle Obama. I was like, oh, cool.
Good for them.
Yeah,
so
good.
are they taking an anti-Tesla stance? The Obamas
I think it wasn't like more of a stance. I mean, I don't know if we believe in this, but it's kind of like, it seemed like the idea of like predictive programming. Like, look, these people, they live right outside the city. There's a crazy terrorist attack, and everything's broken. No one can communicate with each other. Thank God these people aren't in the city. But even outside the city, they're fucked. And the Teslas aren't working. The cell phones aren't working. The only thing that they can use is radio. The Trump people, the conservatives outside New York City, they have already stashed food. They have guns. They're protecting their houses, and that it seemed like more of a something to come, more than it was like propaganda of how they want you to act.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just picturing, Musk world 2042. The year's 2042. You come out of your house, you look up in the air. It's a beautiful day. It's simulated, but it's a beautiful day. It's kind of like a planetarium thing going on. You're just looking up. Perhaps you're in Israel or something. It's just a big dome, and you're looking up. You look out. Your Tesla truck is charging in record time. It'll be ready by the time you need to go to work. Oh wait, you're not going to work.
But it will only take you so far as work. It won't go any further.
Yeah, and you work at home. I don't even know what I'm thinking. Like, you work at home, and then you take a bite. You pick up one of your Bill Gates appeal apples. You take a big bite of it, and you think how much better it is, and how there'll never be a worm that touches it. And you're just like, man, life is good. Life is good. Actually, it can't be bad because the chip won't let me. Ever.
It won't let me think bad thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. So that's Musk World 2042. No, I don't know. I hate being the guy that's like, actually, it's all going to be this and that. But talk to Corey Morningstar. She's right about a lot of stuff. Like whether you always want somebody to warn of the danger of it, and I don't want this like. Musk thinks it's this idea that like if everybody's like, it's like this kind of like almost all big tech kind of like draconian tech does come from like organic hippie thought a lot of times. I feel like where it's like if we're all vibrating on the same frequency, like we can do this, and then it's like, what if we just jam the chip and that's the frequency into your brain, and like what if we just do this, and it's like I wonder if genuinely he's like, I actually think I'm saving the world, or he's like, actually I'm just evil. I don't know.
I mean, I don't believe that what he tweets is genuine. I don't think he actually hates libs and thinks like Trump is cool. Like I think that this is all it's all an act to get public support on the most, like, one of the most nefarious men in American politics.
I think you're exactly right. So my last question for you, we have it's election year. It's coming up. It'll be here before we know it. I don't like election years anymore. The 49ers and the Chiefs are playing in the Super Bowl, which is literally the Super Bowl that happened a month before March of 2020, an election year. Should have. I mean, it's all seeming to happen again. Are we going to get a big false flag this year, dude? You don't have to say what it is. You don't have to make any big claims, but there's got to be one big false flag thing to get a free and fortified election, I think.
I definitely think that something is. I know it sounds like a fake answer, but I do think that something is going to happen. And I don't think it's. I mean, things always happen, so I don't think that's really a crazy thing to assume. But you have Donald Trump running again. There's so many false flags against Donald Trump. The guy in the White House currently, he's barely conscious. There's a giant war happening. It's just like there's got to be something that shakes everybody up and gets them on the same page. COVID got everybody on the same page to fight the virus. And I wouldn't doubt that something similar was going to happen. I know they're talking about disease X, and planning for disease X at the World Economic Forum. And disease X is just the name that they're giving whatever the next pandemic might be. But the fact that they're dedicating an entire 3 days at a week-long summit in Davos to a pandemic that they don't know. Supposedly, they have no idea when it's going to happen. It could happen in 30 years. So it seems like it's going to happen.
Are they just on like GoDaddy buying like domain names for diseases, and they're just like, it's gonna every 4 years we just got to roll one out, and then they make the boomers scared to go vote.
They're a lot less creative than I thought they were.
I guess X. I can't get over the X part. Is everything X now? Is that what we're gonna do? It's just everything's gonna be X. We're gonna have
disease X. It's horrible branding for the social media platform.
It is horrible branding, and then how do you censor, right? So if disease X becomes a thing, which we're not saying that's going to be a thing. How do you algorithmically censor on the platform X people speaking about disease X being fake or something? Like, it's kind of interesting when you think about it. Like, because you had COVID, you had coronavirus, but like disease X, it's like, well, I was talking about Twitter. Like I was talking about the thing that's now I don't call it X, but like
it's a blight on our society, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
On our landscape. What's up with the fatigue of all that question? The last question got me thinking of just knowing that something crazy is going to happen every few years in our lifetime until we die. It's just the nature of how it is now. Not even like world history, but just this false flag fatigue. It's kind of just
it's so tiring, and it's also so the propaganda doesn't work as well anymore when it keeps happening. Like if another pandemic happened, way less people that went all in on the first one would go all in on this one.
Agreed.
Which
good 20% at least,
at least. I mean, even in New York, like the most liberal place, like I don't think that my liberal neighbors would be freaking out, washing their grocery bags, triple masking. I just don't believe it. I don't see it happening. So that's something like they're thinking, they're saying to these experts, like they're thinking years into the future, and they were before. So I'm wondering, like, if it's not a pandemic, what is it? Because I could have never guessed a pandemic before COVID. So like maybe there's another thing that's not a pandemic that they have an idea about that I couldn't even imagine.
There's always, the big, big gun stuff. There's always gun stuff that can happen. I mean,
a nice shooting.
Sadly, I do think that'll happen, but that's not enough to be like, there's going to be a mass shooting this year. That's duh. But like, there's just something. There's something on the horizon. Like I even think.
I've been thinking, okay, you go ahead.
I just think I'm not gonna lie. I think one of the two presidential candidates is gonna. Bye.
Yeah. Interesting.
No, I don't even know. I'm not even saying like in a Kennedy style way. I just,
Yeah. That's a great. You can clip this if you're correct, and that'll be really, really a crazy little video.
They're gonna be like, that guy did it. Yeah. I'm like, no, I didn't do it. Yeah.
Alex Jones said, I think it was a Tucker Carlson, his like interview with him on X. He was going through what he thinks is going to happen, and he was talking about how he thinks that there's going to start being Arab terrorist attacks in America. And whether or not, they're false flags or they're, it's organized by the FBI or they're entrapped or whatever, I feel like it's interesting that that's what he said. And he's right very often. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was something like that. The pro-Palestinian guy bombed something and like it organizes support for more national security stuff, more money to Israel. It could be a whole new like kind of 9/11 type thing.
That's like the problem with like the crime stuff. Like it is bad. It's like I don't think the actual uptick in crime is like a psyop in itself, but I do think that the allowing of crime to happen and businesses being just like, especially in like San Francisco, just you see like so many businesses that just aren't there anymore. Oakland, you have In-N-Out Burger and these huge businesses that just never fail anywhere that are uprooting out of their Denny's and stuff like that. They're out, and then but I do think that the whole lax attitude towards it is a way to just like surveil everybody more and just use way more mass surveillance to get people kind of like downtrodden to be like, well, I'll take anything other than my catalytic converter being stolen. And then it's like, okay, cool. Will you walk around
anything?
Will you let us Neuralink you with a Ring doorbell camera in your head? Will you let us do that? I don't know. I just mean there's a lot of the election years get your brain turning. I'm not immune to it. Sorry, guys. But I guess one last thing. Any updates from our friend that you've been periodically updating us about, the person who's been
the targeted individual?
Yeah, the targeted. That's right.
Targeted individual. I haven't directly spoken to her, but every few weeks she tweets at like Thomas Massey or some person in the government that she thinks is going to support her mission to bring down the deep state. And she'll say, at Loffredo Jeremy was running an op against me. He ran a cyber against me. He put this stuff on my phone. He's working for the FBI. Like she now thinks I'm the bad guy. Before she thought I was someone who might help her.
Did you do those things?
I did not. Yeah, you did not.
I didn't put anything on her phone. Things did appear on her phone from me, which is strange. So like I don't know what's happening. This lady is crazy. If anybody wants to look her up on Twitter, it's at can I say her name? I can do that.
That's up to you, dude.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, it's Vogue Nazi. So just you can look her up and you see she's not all there, but she does have like things from my notes app that have just been dropped onto her phone, and I don't know how that happens, and I don't have her phone number. So.
Do you think Thomas Massey might have seen it? I bet there's a small.
He's a good guy, Thomas Massey.
Yeah, I can see Thomas Massey being like, well, let's give her the benefit.
Thomas Massey, yeah, let's look into this.
I like him.
He says, "Come to my ranch."
I'm a fan. That guy's got a pretty good track record for what he is. I think that's the case. Well, Jeremy, thanks again for coming through. Always fun. Anytime you go somewhere, you got to make your round on here and tell us about it.
Of course.
And then again, hey, it's an election year. I'm sure maybe we can reconvene in a few months and see if any of our predictions were correct about the year. Because I'm serious. I think one of the candidates is kicking the bucket. It might not even be an op. One of them, they're old. One of them might just
they're old. They could just die of natural causes. The chances of them dying of natural causes is not even low. They're just old men.
No, exactly.
But like, come on, we both know it's not going to be natural causes.
Right, exactly. Neura causes. It'll be something's gonna happen. They got the
it can't be natural causes because they're already dead and they're on their third or fourth double. So it'll just be
but that's true. Biden, because Biden is not that. We have to agree that's not the same Biden. Biden
he died in 2003.
Have we ever had a serious conversation about
I know.
That? Like, either they're trying to make us go crazy.
I think it's making us go crazy. I think
it's geared towards us.
He's real, but the pictures are not. The pictures are not like they just like chat GPT him, like or kind of like just make a thing out of him, and they're like, let's just drop this in the Times tomorrow, and like 28% of the population will start like throwing their own shit against the wall. It's so insane that this guy looks crazy. Like so, then they're useless to society now. So, but yeah, on that note, guys, always make sure you check out at Loffredo Jeremy on Twitter. He's got exclamation points on all his tweets. I straight up don't see your tweets. Like I don't see them. I forgot you even still had Twitter. So I don't know if you're shadow banned, but you guys might have to type in the full name. So on that note, guys, everyone have a safe week. We'll catch you guys next time.